disclaimer. I'm a 50-year member of First Press, Kirkwood, and a deacon. So about 40 years ago, I was going to say 30, it's 40, I had a crisis of faith, dark night of the soul. I was wondering what I believe as a Christian, is it true? Or is it just a fairy tale? So I went to what I actually trust, science. And I wanted evidence from science to back up what I was reading in the Bible. And I found out something interesting. That's my presentation today. So does anybody know what intelligent design is? Any ideas? You.
Is it like creationism, like the Bible?
Well, it's like the Bible, yes, but it is not creationism. Okay, thank you. If you get nothing else from this, this is not young Earth, 6,000-year-old Earth, creationism, 7-day creation. ID looks at science, accepted science. Come on in.
Ask Anne if she can hear you when you come out. Are you going to do the rest in front of the podium?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am hearing all of you, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, this is just the first part of a 3-part series. And part 1 is the Big Bang and other world theories. Okay, so Friedrich Nietzsche, God is dead, right? Adolf Hitler's favorite philosopher, by the way. This is the zeitgeist these days. Science has or will eventually answer all questions about everything, thus proving God does not exist. Religion is simply superstition or ignorance and may even be evil. Religion and science are mortal enemies of each other. Now, you don't hear this overtly, but it's kind of in the atmosphere these days. And unfortunately, it's getting more and more prevalent. So what is intelligent design? The theory of intelligent design holds that certain features of the universe and of living things are best scientifically explained by an intelligent designer, not an undirected, natural, or random process. Who believes the universe had an intelligent designer? Well, it's a big tent. The ID movement encompasses all these faiths: Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, pantheists, and even agnostics. Intelligent design is not Scopes monkey trial creationism. Remember Scopes monkey trial, Dayton, Tennessee, William Jennings Bryan and Clarence Darrow, and Clarence Darrow just tore up William Jennings Bryan, made him look like a fool. That is creationism, 7-day creation, the young Earth. That is not intelligent design. And intelligent design is not anti-Darwinian evolution. It's not anti-microevolution, at least. It holds to Darwinian evolution on a micro scale. More on that later. And intelligent design is not anti-science. ID uses accepted scientific methods and data. Intelligent design is not religion or faith, although it does point towards faith. Who believed that the universe had an intelligent designer back then? Well, all the superstars, first dad joke of the lecture here, superstars of science, the people who founded it. Copernicus, the guy who said, no, the Earth is going around the sun. The sun isn't going around the Earth. Galileo got in trouble by saying the same thing with the Catholic Church, not the Catholic Church's finest moment. Kepler, the guy who figured out that orbits are elliptical and not circular, as Plato and Aristotle thought. And there was Newton himself. These guys were all theists. I don't know if they were, went to church every Sunday, but they all believed there was an intelligent designer or God behind it all. Newton has a great quote here: the most beautiful system of the sun, planets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. And there's a lot of comments from all of them like that. And why did they believe that? Okay, because humanity was created in the image of God, humanity could understand his creation. We think like God, not quite as intelligent, but we think, we reason, so we have God's image in us. That's why we can understand the universe. But because humanity is sinful, humanity must test their notions through experiments to see if they accord with observations of nature. And there's a Latin term that I don't know how to pronounce. Okay, this was the dawn of the scientific revolution or enlightenment, and it was the work of God believers. So theists or Christianity, the Judeo-Christian tradition invented science. All the early universities were founded by theists, by God believers. So who believes it now? Well, I'm not going to go through every name here, but I want you to look at the educational institutions that these people receive their PhDs from, and they believe in an intelligent designer. There's Dr. Stephen C. Meyer, philosophy, University of Cambridge, the one in England. Dr. Alan Sandage, California Institute of Technology, otherwise known as Caltech, pretty prestigious place. Dr. Michael Behe, University of Pennsylvania. Claremont Graduate University, Dr. John West, University of Chicago. It goes on and on. Dr. Sandage is an interesting case. Started out as an atheist, but when he started investigating this, he went from atheism to belief in a personal God, a Christian God. But again, it's a big tent. He might have been a Hindu. Okay, meet Albert Einstein, the father of intelligent design. Among other things, his general theory of relativity, 1915, showed that the universe was either expanding or contracting, but not static. Up to this time, it was universally accepted, okay, second dad joke there, that the universe was static, that it was unchanging and eternal. Einstein believed it too, and thought there must be something wrong with that part of his theory. But other physicists and astronomers confirmed Einstein's theory with their own experiment. One of those scientists was a Catholic priest. Father Georges Lemaitre was a Belgian physicist who took the theory of relativity one step further and concluded the universe was expanding. Furthermore, Father Lemaitre calculated the exact rate of expansion, which is now called the cosmological constant. Because the universe was expanding, it must have had a beginning, because if it didn't, all the stars and galaxies would be infinitely far from each other, and they're not infinitely far. It's a finite universe. It's growing, but it's still finite at any one moment in time. So that beginning point, he called, Father Lemaitre, the singularity. So the singularity has some singular qualities. It has zero space, so no mass or energy. It is infinitely curved. It's either eternal or popped out of nothing, which is impossible scientifically. Either way, the singularity lies beyond a scientific explanation because the laws of physics hadn't been created yet. In other words, the laws of physics don't make the singularity. The singularity makes the laws of physics. Einstein hated the idea of the singularity. He thought it smacked of the Christian dogma of creation. Isn't that interesting? It was beyond the reach of science. At the singularity, all laws of physics break down. So Einstein changed his theory of relativity to try to avoid Father Lemaitre's stunning conclusions. He later called this change to his theory the greatest stupidity of my life, and changed his theory back to its original form, i.e., an expanding, finite universe that was not eternal. He eventually accepted the idea of the singularity. But the singularity was just a theory until Edwin Hubble, yes, that Hubble of Space Telescope fame, saw red. In 1924, astronomer Edwin Hubble looked through his telescope at Mount Wilson in LA and saw that something called the redshift at the edge of the known universe. The redshift proved the universe was expanding, just as Einstein and Lemaitre had theorized. Moreover, the universe was expanding at an ever-increasing rate, now called Hubble's constant or cosmological constant. So what is the redshift? The redshift is light from stars and galaxies that are moving away from us on Earth appear red as opposed to white or multicolored. And that is one of the earliest universes out there. Remember, when we're looking out into space, we're looking back in time because it's taking billions of years for light from the earliest light of the universe to reach us. That light is redshifted. The redshift is the visual component of the Doppler effect. Hubble saw that the further away the galaxy was, the redder it was. Thus, the faster it was moving away, which means the universe had a beginning. It's now accepted scientific fact that the universe is 13.8 billion years old and arose out of a singularity which exploded into our universe. This explosion is called the Big Bang. And when all space, time, energy, and matter, I should have added in there, energy and matter, and physical laws, constants of nature began. But there were doubters at first because the Big Bang seemed too godlike. After all, the singularity had indeed created something out of nothing. Well, Hubble saw the Big Bang, but these two guys heard it. In 1964, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson were researching microwaves for Bell Labs. The goal was to use microwaves for long-distance telephone calls. But everywhere they pointed their microwave detector, they heard this strange hiss of background microwave radiation. They both won the Nobel Prize for discovering cosmic microwave background. It's sound evidence for the Big Bang. Insert groan here. CMB proved Big Bang theory to the holdouts that still thought the universe was static and eternal. CMB formed 380,000 years after the Big Bang because before that time, light or photons couldn't escape the white-hot stew of protons, neutrons, and electrons. CMB constitutes the absolute boundary of science because it's the first light or electromagnetic radiation. We can't see beyond it because this is when light was created. Atheist and superb physicist Dr. Stephen Hawking proved the existence of the singularity. Stephen Hawking knew that black holes had singularities, and so he agreed that the universe probably began from one as well. He came up with a mathematical formula to the left, which proved that the universe sprang from a singularity with infinite curvature and zero spatial volume. Zero spatial volume. Think about that. That means nothing, zero. Usually in physics, you begin with the math and then you experiment and come up with the evidence. Here we had the evidence, the observations, and Dr. Hawking came up with the math that proved it. Well, thank you, Dr. Hawking. You've proven that something came from nothing, which means there must be an intelligent designer, right?
Not so fast, Keith. I never said the singularity proved the existence of God.
Well, Dr. Hawking, welcome. Everybody give a round of applause to Dr. Hawking. We're honored to have you here. Honored, sir.
You should be honored. Your educational background doesn't impress me. After all, while I was researching black holes at Cambridge, you were researching Jello shots at the University of Missouri.
Okay, so I had a misspent college career, but since then I've read all your books, I've done the homework. I think we can talk about this stuff on an equal footing.
Equal footing? I don't have any footing in this damn chair. Are you making fun of me?
Enable us, Dr. Hawking. We're just glad you're here. Okay, let's get into fine tuning. By the way, can someone get me a glass of water? Thank you. Getting a little cotton mouth here. Fine tuning is called the anthropic principle. Anthropic is a fancy way of saying the universe is designed for humanity. It's like anthropology, it's human loving. In order for life to exist at all, the universe has to have at least, thank you, have to have 25 certain physical laws or constants of nature fine-tuned to an incredible degree. All of these constants are extraordinarily improbable. Their improbability is so large, in fact, that we cannot reasonably attribute their existence to pure chance. So it's reasonable to attribute these conditions to intelligent design as one explanation. That's an AI-created image to the left there. I told ChatGPT, create a device that will symbolize the anthropic principle. That's what it came up with. Yeah, it's scary and amazing. Okay, what are these constants of nature? Well, I'm just going to spend 15 minutes on each one. I'll have you home tomorrow about 9:30. So we're not going to go through them. It's everything from the speed of light, Planck's constant, gravitational constant, Higgs boson constant, cosmological constant, the electron charge, the fine structure constant. It goes on and on. This only became dogma, pun intended, of science in the 80s or 90s. When this became consensus science, things started happening on the multiverse front. Okay, We're just going to go through a couple of them. Fine tune point one, gravity constant. Stars are necessary for life because they're the source of all energy and elements in the universe, including some that lead to building planets and humans. Think carbon. We're carbon-based units, right? Too much gravity and the universe would collapse into a black hole. Too little gravity and the universe would not form at all. There are 10 to the 38 different possibilities for gravity. That's a 1 followed by 38 zeros. 1 out of that huge number. Out of that huge number, only one gravity possibility will support star formation and durability, and that's the force of gravity in our universe. So here's a thought experiment. The odds of us living in a universe with just the right amount of gravity, not too much, not too little, is 1 chance out of 10 to the 38. If we painted 1 grain of sand red and hid it in a sand pile that covered Europe and Asia all the way to the moon, then ask a friend to find that red grain of sand, the odds of him finding it would be 1 chance out of 10 to the 38. So obviously impossible. Fine tune point 2, mass of the electron constant. Protons are 1,836 times as big as electrons. Neutrons are 1,838 times as big as electrons. If the electron was only slightly bigger than it is, 2.5 times as big, it would combine with the proton to produce a neutron. Well, that wouldn't be good because then we wouldn't have matter. We wouldn't have atoms. But then there we go. We would have no atoms or molecules, so there'd be no stars, planets, galaxies, or humans. If the mass of an electron were 2.5 times less than the size of a proton, it would fly away from the nucleus. Again, there would be no atoms. So obviously that's key to have gravity fine-tuned. Fine-tune point 4, and this is the last one. Our universe is expanding and accelerating at just the right rate ever since the Big Bang. Too fast, the universe would fly apart with no star or galaxy formation. If the universe was expanding too slowly, the universe would collapse on itself and become a black hole, also called the Big Crunch. Physicist and atheist Roger Penrose said there was 10 to the 120, third different possibilities for the expansion of the universe at the moment of the Big Bang. Only one possibility would support life, the one we have in the universe right now. And he won the Nobel Prize for this. He's an atheist.
If the overall density, mass, of the universe were changed by 0.00000000000000001, no stars or galaxies could be formed. And
Thank
never
you,
call me
Steve.
Steve again. It's Dr. Hawking to you.
Okay, Dr. Hawking. So what do prominent atheist physicists think of the fine-tuning argument?
It would be very difficult to explain why the universe should have begun in just this way, except as the act of a God who intended to create beings like us.
Wow, so you do believe in God?
Chill out, Keith. I was high when I wrote this, and I walked it back in my last book, The Theory of Everything.
Okay, well, sure sounds like you're a God believer at some point, Dr. Hawking. Oh, what did your friend Fred Hoyle say, Mr. Steady State Static Universe? A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics, as well as with chemistry and biology. How about award-winning scientist author Paul Davies? Scientists are slowly waking up to an inconvenient truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. You have to spend time thinking about it. It's not a trivial argument. We atheists all say that. Christopher Hitchens. Anybody knows anything about Christopher Hitchens? You heard of this guy? Nasty guy. He's dead now, but not a pleasant atheist. Some are. Okay. So at this point in the 80s or 90s, when it became known that the universe was fine-tuned to this degree and that the odds of it happening are astronomically impossible, all of a sudden they dusted off this idea called the multiverse. And there's a multiverse of multiverse theories. The reason they had to do this, well, let's just read through it. There are an infinite number of universes that arose less than a second after the Big Bang, according to the multiverse theory. It's called inflationary theory. These universes all have different physical laws, constants of nature, than our universe. Well, this solves the problem of fine tuning, right? Because with an infinite number of universes, you can have an infinite number of physical laws. Isn't that convenient? And we just happen to live in the one that supports life as we know it. So we won the lottery. Okay. Before we get to the other weird theories of multiverses and other theories, we're going to have to take a quick detour into quantum mechanics. How are we doing on time here? Oh, okay, we're good. The first quantum mechanics is like Fight Club. All right. What's the first rule of Fight Club? Anybody watch the movie? Nobody talks about Fight Club. Anyway, the first rule of quantum mechanics, nobody understands quantum mechanics. Not really. It's just too weird. The second rule of quantum mechanics, nobody talks about the philosophical aspects of quantum mechanics. In fact, a lot of professors and colleges just tell their students who are learning this, shut up and calculate. Because there's intense or very deep philosophical aspects of quantum mechanics, which we'll get into. Quantum mechanics explains the behavior of matter, subatomic particles like photons and electrons at the smallest quantum level. So you have theory of relativity, general relativity explains things at the macro level, huge universe, space, time, gravity, all that stuff. When you go to the subatomic level, things get really strange and don't act according to the laws of general relativity. These subatomic particles act like both a wave and a particle at the same time. It's called wave-particle duality. This was proven by the famous double slit experiment. Here's all you really need to understand about quantum mechanics. The very act of observing matter at the smallest level takes it from probable, from something called the wave function, to reality. Okay, the double slit experiment took a gun, it fired photons, it could fire electrons, and it fired it through one slit at first, okay? And then you get a pattern of where those photons and electrons hit. Something weird happens when you put two or more slits. Instead of moving through like a particle, it moves like a wave of probability. The particle could be anywhere. It doesn't become real until you put a particle detector between the screen and the photon gun. At that point, the electron just kind of puts up its hands, like, oh, here I am. Before that, it's just a probability. Well, probability is probability. We're all made of real atoms. So you need an observer in order to make matter real. You need an intelligent designer. Einstein hated the idea of the wave function because it was indeterminate. He was a classical guy, successor to Sir Isaac Newton. He said, God does not play dice with the universe. Hated probabilistic wave functions. He said, does that mean if I don't look at the moon, it's not there? Well, at a quantum level, no, it's not. Of course, I would say at any given moment, somebody's looking at the moon with 7 billion people on Earth. Now we get into quantum cosmology, and it's called the theory of everything. Quantum cosmology attempts to combine theory of relativity and quantum mechanics. If true, it could explain the fine-tuning of the universe, as it would supersede the constants of nature. That is, tau, theory of everything, would cause the constants of nature, to be what they are. String theory is another form of theory of everything. Anybody hear string theory? Yeah, Brian Greene? Okay. Albert Einstein was the first to search for tau, theory of everything, in the 1920s, and the search continues to this day. So to this day, well, Dr. Hawking is going to disagree here shortly, but we have not combined the two theories. And this is a problem in physics. Quantum Cosmology 101. Before the Big Bang, and this is what Dr. Hawking believes in. Before the Big Bang, there was superspace, okay? Superspace before the Big Bang that exists in imaginary time, which contains the singularity, which we talked about, and the universal wave function. It's a quantum mechanical wave function of probability. The universal wave function eventually collapses into a universe out of an infinity of possible universes. This theory has been attacked because, well, imaginary time is imaginary, right? Some physicists believe the universal wave function never collapses. So you see the diagram on the left there. All those possible universes could have happened, but the big cone is the universe, our universe. And according to Dr. Hawking's theory, you don't need an observer. Well, that goes against the laws of quantum mechanics. You always need an observer to make something real. This is the other quantum cosmology theory. It's the many worlds theory. Something called the universal wave function, which we talked about, created our universe with an infinite number of parallel universes, okay? Again, it's a multiverse theory. Unlike standard quantum mechanics, the wave function never collapses into one universe. Instead, all possible universes are real. These parallel universes mean that every possible outcome to every decision and choice in your life manifests themselves in another universe. You may be wondering why I have a Kirkwood High School cheerleader photo on this slide. A few years ago, I went to a high school reunion, and one of the cheerleaders came up. Let's call her Janelle, not her real name, and that's not her picture either. Told me that she had a crush on me in 10th grade. So I had no idea. I was floored by this. But in another world, I knew it. I asked her out. We got married, and we're living on North Taylor right now. That's how crazy the many worlds theory is, right? And that's the diagram where, I didn't create this diagram, but I asked her out. We get married. We have kids. The other track or world is what happened, well, in this world anyway. And I had no idea that she was interested in me. This is an actual theory that people subscribe to, by the way. The eminent physicists believe this many worlds theory. Okay, this is one of my favorite wacky, wild theories of the origin of the universe. Just like the movie The Matrix, we're all living in one of many giant computer simulations. Okay, it's all a simulation. Everybody watch The Matrix? Remember the glitches? Yeah. That was the premise of that movie, that the space aliens have created this simulation, and we're just in it. We don't even exist. As far as the Matrix is concerned, we're like a brain in a vat, and with wires into our head, simulating reality. So no serious cosmologist really believes this one. I mean, there's strange theories, and then there's ones that are just really out there. However, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an educator, scientist, popularizer, plays around with this idea. Okay, let's get to the problems with all the multiverse concepts. Remember, where's the beef? Clara Peller, Wendy's commercial, Wendy's, the hamburger commercial. Where's the beef? And then 2020, nothing burger. Where is the beef? Where's the evidence, folks, for this? There is zero evidence, zero, for any multiverse or theory of everything. There isn't. There's mathematical laws that have not been proven, but you wouldn't know that from reading, say, the New York Times or mass media. They claim that multiverses have been proven. In fact, I have a friend who started a $50 million civil engineering business in her basement. And we were hiking one day, and she goes, "Oh, no, it's been proven." She was one of the motivations for this talk, by the way. I didn't argue with her. I knew I'd have to reason with her. You don't argue with somebody, a woman, period. And especially somebody who retired at 50 with 50 million bucks in the bank. So anyway, there is zero evidence, zero zilch, nada, bupkis, no evidence. The verses aren't technically even scientific theories, because most of them are not falsifiable. That is, they can't be tested in a lab experiment to see if it's true or false. It's an idea that exists only in mathematical terms. Many prominent atheists, astrophysicists don't believe it either, and have other solutions to the fine-tuning problem. More problems with all the multiverse and theory of everything concepts. All of these multiverses require fine-tuning agent themselves. After all, if there's infinite number of universes with different physical laws, well, they've got to be fine-tuned for all those different physical laws. So you're not removing the problem of fine-tuning. The equations for the Hawking-Hartle quantum cosmology has special boundaries using differential equations that were chosen by the two physicists themselves, the intelligent designers. So they rigged the game. They rigged their own mathematics. They said, "Oh, we're going to put these special constraints." Well, you're acting as an intelligent designer when you do that. That's not a true experiment. Finally, we get to string theory. String theory is kind of not as popular as it used to be. String theory says that we have neutrons, we have electrons, protons, we have quarks, and below the quark level, they're vibrating strings, right? Those vibrating strings vibrate in multiple wait for it, dimensions, infinite number of dimensions. Again, an attempt to get around fine-tuning argument. There is a prominent astrophysicist who subscribes to this theory. His name is Dr. Brian May. He was knighted by King Charles last year. Does anybody know? He also likes to play guitar. Does that name sound familiar to anybody? We will rock you. He's a lead guitarist for Queen. And also a very eminent astrophysicist. So talk about the dream job. He's a rock star and a very well-respected astrophysicist who's worked with NASA, JPL, and the European Space Agency.
Was he a rock star first?
Yes. Well, it was always about 2007. So they were, that's when he got his PhD, and Queen was around before that. Oh, long before that. 90s, right? 80s? Yep. Okay, another argument against intelligent design, the God of the gaps. See, look at all the gaps. And this is what they'll come after you with. When they consider questions of science that are currently unknown or incomplete, theists just fill in the gaps with their God. When these gaps are ultimately filled in by science, theists will simply move on to another gap and on it goes. Because all gaps in scientific knowledge will eventually be filled in, science will replace God as the ultimate source of truth. That's the God of the gaps argument. Well, here's problems with the God of the gaps argument. IDE proponents, intelligent design, say there's no gaps in our theory because we're looking at the same existing scientific evidence as our atheistic counterparts and simply coming to a logical conclusion based on current evidence. Actually, atheists have the science of the gaps problem. We'll eventually fill in the gaps. Have faith. Like the fine-tuning argument, they know it's a problem, and they're trying mightily to get around it with all the multiverse theories and the theories of everything. So both intelligent design proponents and scientific materialism, which is the name of their philosophy, and it is a philosophy, ultimately rely on faith. Isn't that interesting? They have faith in science. We have faith in God. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, meet Dr. Stephen Hawking, the eminent philosopher.
The universe was spontaneously created out of nothing, according to the laws of science.
Dr. Hawking, there were no laws of science at the singularity. Remember, they all break down. Even you agreed to it before you walked it back. Spontaneous creation is not even a scientific concept because it can't be tested. Folks, it's not science if you don't have an experiment. You can't just make up terms like spontaneous creation out of nothing. That is a philosophical statement. That is not a scientific statement.
The universe is the ultimate free lunch.
That's a scientific idea, Dr. Hawking. Science requires a cause that produces an effect. So there's no uncaused free lunch. There'll never be a free lunch and never will be. Somebody has to make the lunch or pay for the lunch.
Because there is such a mathematical law as gravity, the universe can and would create itself out of nothing.
Dr. Hawking, mathematical laws only exist in minds, human or divine. They don't exist independently, although Dr. Hawking believes that. He believes that laws create actual reality. The laws describe reality. They don't create it.
Philosophy is dead.
It's very much alive, Dr. Hawking, because all your comments are philosophical, not scientific.
Philosophical? Don't make me laugh, Keith. Wait, too late. Ha, ha, ha. If I say something is science, the public will believe me, not you. After all, I taught at Cambridge and you went to a university that is nicknamed the zoo.
The zoo, not the zoo. Although it was kind of a zoo when I was there.
No thanks.
Oh.
I'm meeting Newton and Einstein for drinks in a black hole. The lighting is terrible, but what a singular experience. Ha,
Okay.
ha, ha.
Okay, Dr. Hawking, we'll let you go. Okay, finally, Cramer's constant of nature. Some quantum theorists are puzzled by the lack of any observer at the moment of the Big Bang. After all, doesn't quantum physics demand that there be one in order for the universe to be real? And that is the Copenhagen interpretation. You need an observer to make the electron finally raise its hand and say, here I am, and be real. But there was an observer of the universe, right? According to the Christian tradition. Here's a quote from a best-selling book. And God looked upon all that he had made, and indeed it was very good. He looked, he observed the universe. And there was morning, and there was, what is that? The sixth day. There was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Okay. One final cosmic thought. For the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, the story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries.
I always respected Jastrow, even if I disagreed with him. Kind of like you, Keith.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Hawking. I'm glad we ended on a nice note. Okay, that's a lot of information to throw at you. Any questions or thoughts or?
There's a lot of this theory, the claims of theory out. I mean, there's a lot of YouTube videos that talk about this. You probably watched.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but a lot of people still don't know. Well, that's why I produced this talk. I mean, they're still buying into the science, right? I'm buying into the science too. What science has become is its own religion now. It's called scientific. Those Hawking quotes, they're not scientific quotes. That's a statement of faith. That's a statement of philosophy, i.e. religion. So that is what we're up to in this modern world, because a lot of people think that we believe in a fairy tale, right? You know, miracles, people walking on water, the universe, all that. But actually, again, sum up, science actually points towards the higher power and not away. So, yeah.
It's hard to mentally grasp the concepts.
Scientific ideas have to be falsifiable.
Yes, that's a.
Saying a lot of the stuff that Hawking is claiming.
There's no experiment.
falsifiable,
Well, yeah,
but can't disprove it.
you can't disprove it. That's a long way from proving it. Yeah.
I'm saying that's the difference between faith and science. Is whether you can disprove. And what scientists classically are trying to do is not so much prove it to it as disprove it.
Oh, okay. That's how they start. I thought that you come up with an hypothesis and then prove it true or false.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's that if it can't be disproved, then it's not a scientific method.
Right. Exactly. That's the theists developed the scientific method. My point is that science has gone away from that. They're just saying that there's mathematical laws that are floating out there, like Plato and Aristotle, as perfect forms. And these mathematical laws have creative power. No, they don't. Mathematics describes reality. It does not create anything, and it exists in minds, either human or divine. So.
Keith, could you repeat the question that was asked in the audience?
Oh, sure.
Here,
Yeah,
I don't know if they could.
they could hear the question.
discuss it.
Yeah,
Oh, yes, please. Can you repeat for the Zoomers
Sure.
to hear the questions in the room?
absolutely.
She said the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we had a question. So, gosh, I've forgotten now. Scientific method. Anybody have another question?
Well, I mean, it's the development of quantum physics, not just physics, but quantum physics.
Right.
Pretty new, relatively speaking, it's pretty new. That has led a lot of the quantum physicists to realize that there is a higher power. These are people that are actually studying quantum physics, because quantum physics is so.
Yes. Right.
None of it fits the cosmology theory, the big macro theory.
And yeah,
Meeting theory.
and yeah, and Bill just member of the audience said that that's why quantum physicists, some of them have become believers because of this, right? Because of what I've just presented. In fact, somebody in our Bible study group, Rob, says the astrophysicists at WashU, they're a closeted group of believers there.
Really?
They're yes, in a sizable proportion of them. They're looking at this and going, okay, This kid couldn't have just happened by accident. And the multiverse theories are now falling into disrepute for the reason you can't test for them. There's nothing to do except come up with endless mathematical equations that can't be tested. You need testing experiments to have science. So now that those ideas have been shot down, what are you left with? You know, the obvious answer, I think, is an intelligent. There's a mind, whatever mind that is. If you're Hindu, it's Brahman. If you're pantheist, it's something you hear people talk about the universe, right? Yeah, but the universe, when they talk about it, sounds awfully godlike. So we're coming to a point now where religion and science are converging. We're talking about the same thing. We're looking at the same evidence. I'm just coming, and the ID proponents are coming at it from a different angle. We have a different explanation. The other side, the other argument is things just happen. You heard Dr. Hawking. It just happened. Spontaneous creation. Boom, magic. That, folks, it's just not science. That's it. Things just don't happen. You need a cause and an effect. So that's the other big takeaway. They have a religion, and I respect all religions, but it's a religion. The science points towards a creator, intelligent designer.
But doesn't it make you think that God is just, because he gives brain to think and to study quantum physics and cosmology.
Right.
He gives brain to think about this stuff, but he's just going, okay, well, I'm going to set it down this direction. See what they come up with.
Yeah, well, it's only been recently that, like the 80s or 90s, the constants of nature, that's all of a sudden the atheists were going, wait a second, we've got to come up with an explanation for this, right? And we do. That's part of since we're made in the image of God, we have the ability to think like him in certain ways and to understand creation. So.
That make you wonder, where did the intelligent creator come from?
I've heard that before, and that's where the faith comes in.
Could you
Right.
please repeat that question for us on
Where
Zoom?
did the intelligent designer come from? Where did God come from? And you hear that a lot. And that's our faith, that he just is. But they have the spontaneous creation. It just is. See, they've got their own faith as well, right? This ID will take you up to the point of faith. It'll take you right there. One small step, right? As opposed to a quantum leap, another dead joke. Yeah, it doesn't take much if you study the science to go, oh my gosh, it's obvious that there's a mind, a transcendent mind behind the universe. So, yeah, where does God come? Right. He always was, always is. He lives outside of space and time. Maybe it's imaginary time, like Dr. Hawking said. Yep.
I'm really out of my league intellectually with this group like this. But I just wonder if, from an ID point of view, where does evolution fit?
That's the subject of my next talk. If I'm invited back. Where does evolution fit in with ID? Was the question.
Thank you.
Well, okay. Spoiler alert. We believe in microevolution, as I said, Darwinian. We don't believe in macroevolution, microbe to man. There wasn't enough time in 4.5 billion years for all the random, what Darwinian says, natural selection through random mutation, random. Evolution can only move so quickly because once you mutate all these genes, a lot of them lead to the death of the organism. You can only do it step by step to give a survival advantage, a reproductive advantage to the organism. So I'll get into that. Yeah.
You're going to be back next week.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to spoil you.
Oh, no, it took a while to produce this, but no, I'll get into it. And there are a lot of reputable evolutionary biologists who say that there's serious problems with neo-Darwinism. Serious. And it's a controversy right under the surface. Again, because of the complexity of the DNA, Watson and Crick DNA molecule, the 4 nucleotides, it looks suspiciously like a computer code, doesn't it? Because it is a code. There's no biochemical reason why these 4 nucleotides in the double helix have to line up like that. They need to be placed in certain order to create eyes, hands, gallbladders, whatever. And that's a problem for people who believe in Darwinian evolution. You can't mutate the DNA that quickly or you'll kill the organism. It's a slow process. Does it work with the finches on the Galapagos Islands? Yeah. Their beaks got bigger because they needed to break the nuts. There was a climate change episode. Polar bears, their fur turned white when they moved north. Dogs can be bred until, they can evolve. So there's microevolution. The problem is going from a microbe all the way to humanity. There's too many steps in between. But I'll lay that out. Bruce.
Doesn't Genesis, or at least some version of Genesis, talk about God speaking like
Yes.
a communication?
Yes. Observing, speaking. Yeah, the question was, I'm sorry. He said, doesn't the Bible talk about speaking things into existence? Yeah, I would say that's a form of observation. Quantum mechanics, you need an observer to make the electron real, to make atoms, to make anything real. And, Niels Bohr, atheist who developed quantum mechanics in the 20s, it's over 100 years old now, by the way.
Well, how do these folks who wrote that part of Genesis intuit the process
They're inspired by God.
before the DNA?
Yeah,
Before we realize that there were all these codes in
right.
our bodies.
God was trying to tell what happened through poetry. He was trying, they're not going to understand DNA, but I barely understand it, right? So he had to come up with some kind of literary device to say, okay, I spoke it, I observed it, and it happened. There was creation. And now, using science, yes, you need an observer. He was right. For anything is real. So, sure.
And I'm with you. This is way above my level of understanding, but you said a couple of times, quoted that the God made man in his image.
Correct.
Explain that.
He's a good God. He's a great guy.
Not explain that.
Yeah, no, that's the faith. He told us that we're made in his image. We're not obviously not as intelligent, but we reason like him. And that's why we can understand the universe. He made the universe so we could understand it. It's not impossible. Einstein said the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is its comprehensibility, that we can comprehend it. He was amazed by that. He played footsie with belief. I think he was a closet believer. He always talked about God. God doesn't play dice with the universe. And he was a deist probably, but he also believed there was an intelligent designer behind it. And like I say, more and more people looking at the evidence now are coming to that conclusion. You're always going to have your diehard atheists. There will never be an end to the debate. I understand that. But I think people need to know what I just presented. There's a valid scientific argument for, and again, you don't have to be Christian, Baptist. One of my favorite podcasts is two Orthodox rabbis who are also theoretical physicists. It's called From Physics to God, Ari and Levi. They are hysterical. And they are ID people, intelligence designers, Orthodox rabbis. So it's a big tent. Hindus, like I said. So.
What you said about the Bible, how did it know, or how was it written, that the first thing that's created is the light is separated from the darkness, or that is not day and night. And it follows the Big Bang. Like first thing, or there was day and night, I'm working for, but day is not necessarily day. Like
24-hour day, right?
We did not quite hear that question on Zoom.
Laura's talking about Genesis, light and day, and 24-hour periods of creation and all that stuff.
Yeah. So the first, it wasn't like would think that if they didn't know, or if it was just for that first day and night thing, but really it was like being separated from the darkness. So within the darkness was this light.
The first cosmic microwave background, maybe. That's the first light.
Yeah.
Yeah. 380,000 years after the Big Bang.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time too, at our group, but that's why I will study that, we've got human time, right? And God's time,
Right.
not measured the same way.
Exactly.
Right. But human time is really done, like satellites have to compensate
Yep.
for speed and gravity because our brain is no time. We feel it a certain way, but if you're moving at the speed of light, time isn't even right. So it's just a concept that for our brain, time is not
It's relative
the same.
to the special theory of relativity. The faster you go speed of light, more time slows down.
Yeah, gravity, the
Yep.
harder.
So if we took off at the speed of light to Alpha Centauri, and came back, everybody on Earth would be dead.
Yeah.
And they proved that.
GPS didn't compensate for it, we only lost. So the satellites are changing the time to match our time.
Yep.
So time is in our head. That just proves the whole point is, right?
It's relative. A lot of people think it's not real. That's another bizarre theory. There's no such thing. I can't quite grasp that one.
What's the movie that I just watched it? I can't think of the name of the movie, but anyway. I can't remember the name of the movie, but anyway, what is basically part of the premise is that time is everything exists at all times, right? And we're just seeing it in a linear fashion because that's how our brains evolve, right?
Mhm.
But this, I can't remember the name of the movie, but anyway, this shows where he can move between different periods of time. You can go back in time, go forward in time, be in present time. The time is just this one big huge. So say,
Lots of theories out there. Right. So, yep. Oh,
I have to leave early and I'm so sorry about that. I have to go ring bells.
okay. Ring those bells. Yeah.
But this has been quite.
Oh, great. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Francis Collins.
Yeah.
I guess you've read.
Sure.
Book, and I found his book really interesting. Not growing up as a believer, his household as a child was non-believers, then after all the scientific research.
Yep. He came to be a believer. Dr. Alan Sandage, Edwin Hubble's protege, diehard atheist. And he was looking at what all the science and going, wait a second. Yeah. And like we said, at WashU, Rob said that in our group, said that there is a sizable group of astrophysicists at WashU. Well, you saw the educational institutions where these guys come from. Cambridge, Yale, Harvard, yeah. So it's not a crackpot. I get the tinfoil hat, you know. I get thrown in with creationists, unfortunately. God love them, but no, I don't believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. I believe in the science, which shows it's 4.5. So no, it's becoming more and more acceptable, socially acceptable. Finally, in the last 5 years, we have people in the ID movement debating atheists and debating physicists who think that things just happen. That's only in the last few years. So in other words, we're finally being taken seriously. Before that, we were just nuts and waving Bibles in the air and snake handling, right? So, yep.
One of the things that started intelligent design, one of the first findings is had to do with this double slit
Yes.
experiment, which I think is, which was mind blowing, that you have these subatomic particles and photons, particles like electrons,
Right,
that are reacting differently if they're being observed. So do they have some level of consciousness? Does everything, some people studying this are saying like even a rock might have some level of consciousness.
pantheism. I mean, yeah, that's a theory.
Some level, whether it's a vibration they're getting and then responding to, like, now there's lots of information about how plants communicate, and they have recordings of them speaking, communicating.
For the folks at home, she's talking about panpsychism, right? Yeah.
So there's so many levels of consciousness that we don't even understand. Like, even forget about how you get conscious, but even these other things somehow have some level of awareness of what's, being watched.
Yeah, ID allows for that. The consciousness, God could be in rocks and trees and all that. I'm not disputing that. Yeah.
But it's something that was unexpected, when the light reacted differently, or the particle.
And it became a wave. Yeah, the wave function is a probability function, mathematical, and it collapses into an electron when you look at it. Wow. Yeah, that blew everybody's mind. So, and that's standard. That's the Copenhagen, and that's science. You need an observer. So it almost proves our point. Just that alone. You need an observer at the beginning of the universe. Dr. Hawking says, no, you don't need an observer. Things just pop up out of nowhere. So again, that's not science.
Yeah, but who would know if nobody observed it? You wouldn't know if it popped up.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously something popped up. Yeah, he says it just popped up. I say intelligent designer popped it up. Comes down to that. But I think there's more science on my side.
Well, Teddy Dad sort of touched on it before, but I think intelligent design hangs its hat largely on statistical methods. Because the science of statistics, like as you have pointed out, how absolutely unlikely, and if you're familiar with standard deviations, like, if you go 3 or 4 out, it's like 1 to the, say, 1,000 that something could happen. Like if somebody
Right.
has an IQ of 200, it's like that happens 1 in a million. But when you see the numbers here of how unlikely that is, like you wouldn't find that normally in a population or in 13.8 billion years that would happen. So it's outside the boundary of,
At some point,
that's what a lot of the,
1 to the to 10, to the 38th power.
yeah,
At some point, it becomes ridiculous, right? And even the atheists going, wait a second.
yeah.
Yeah, this is not an accident.
Find the grain of sand
Right.
in all those planets to moon, you in 13.8 billion years.
You would never find it.
Grain of sand. So that's a lot of what my understanding is that they're basing their belief on is that statistically these things would be considered impossible to happen
Correct.
by chance.
So they came up with the multiverse. They came up with theories of everything. They still have to answer the fine-tuning argument. So. All right. Everybody feels sure. Thank you, Dr. Hawk. Dr. Laura.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for
Keep
the
going.
water too. For a cotton.
I got that one.
Why you have those there?
Exactly why I have, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Diane.
Very nice. We appreciate it. We will see some of you next week and we may hear
Yeah.
from Keith Claimer again. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith.
So thank you. I am going to stop the recording if you want to still just talk. Go ahead.
Yeah.